I recently met with a merger and acquisition lawyer who was interested in putting $2 million into a whole life insurance policy. Now, he had first heard about whole life insurance after he met with a financial advisor who pitched him on the idea of putting away a lot of money into a whole life insurance policy in order to build cash value and then be able to use that cash value when he retires. Now, after being pitched on it, he looked at the numbers and said, you know what? I see the benefits, but I feel like I've got to understand this more. So he really dug deep, reached out to several different agencies and such, and that's how we connected. So in discussing whole life insurance, he let us know that he was primarily interested in maximizing the cash value, and then he wants to be able to use the cash value. So what I'm going to cover is exactly why he's putting away $2 million into a whole life insurance policy, and then how he plans to use it. So to kick things off, why is he putting this much money into a life insurance policy? There are three primary reasons why. The first, safe growth. He's looking at the cash value as an alternative to bonds or treasuries, really a fixed asset in his portfolio. The tax benefits, this one is huge. If he follows IRS rules, which is very easy to do, he can access the cash value anytime he wants, and he can access it tax-free. Now, he's in the highest tax rate, and he likely will be as long as he's working. He's 38, so he's going to likely work for a long time. So that tax-free benefit is extremely valuable to him, and he knows it. So let me show you exactly what I mean here, because sometimes people have questions about this. So here is one of the policies we had looked at. Here are the numbers, just directly from the insurance company. But I'm going to pull these up on Excel. Here's what he's looking to fund, $2 million over 3 years. There's his funding. After the third year, he pays nothing. Cash value, positive between years 3 and 4. Fantastic. The tax-free benefit. So as we look at the policy growth rate, here's what we've got. This is with MassMutual. The dividend rate is 6.60%. The dividend rate is a gross rate. That's not what your money is going to grow by in any whole life insurance policy. What we want to look at is our annual yield. We can also ask for the annual rate of return. It's the same thing. It shows the net growth rate year over year. What is your money growing by? The cash value specifically. Worst part about whole life insurance, first year, we're always negative, no matter how well we design it. But we did minimize that hit where he's positive very, very early on. However, when he looks at this annual yield, if we follow IRS rules, we can look at this as a tax-free yield. So what that means is when we look at the taxable equivalent yield in purple, if we look at year 4, when his annual yield is 5.10%, the taxable equivalent yield is 8.50%. He's in a 40% tax rate. So what this means is if he has money in treasuries or in a money market, for example, earning 8.5%, which we all know today is unrealistic, but if he's earning 8.5%, call it in treasuries, after paying taxes, he'd be left over with 5.10%. So how he and a lot of people look at this is that if they're earning, call it between 4 to 5%, and it's tax-free, they would have to earn a much higher return than that somewhere else in order to get the same results. And the risk is also minimal with a whole life insurance policy. So here we've got the annual yield and the taxable equivalent. And then we also have the internal rate of return, which is a fancy way of saying the long-term average growth rate when we look at the policy. And we also have the taxable equivalent IRR over here. So I set it at 40%, but during our conversation, he said, can you make that 50%? So we did, and that makes it even more attractive. So any type of tax-free asset is going to be more attractive if I'm in a higher tax rate. The higher my tax rate is, the more buying power that tax-free rate will have. All right, let's continue on. So, number one, safety. Number two, tax benefits. Number three, accessing the money. This is what we're going to focus on for the rest of this video. So what we're going to look at is using this policy for business and real estate opportunities. So the first thing we'll cover here is the policy details. We looked at quite a bit. The first thing I'll say is that the policy is set up for high cash value. That's a must. He's funding the policy with a lump sum of $2 million with 3 payments over 24 months. So you'll notice on the illustration, it's over 3 years, but in reality, that's 24 months because he makes the first payment, call it today. 12 months later, he makes the second payment, and then another 12 months later, he makes the third. So today is 0, then 12, plus another 12. Hope that makes sense. Now, why it's only 24 months is because he wants to get the money in quickly so it compounds. But 2, he's not into the idea of making payments forever. He doesn't like that. He just wants to get a lot of money in, see it compound, and then use it for opportunities. So in terms of options, we looked at 2 different companies here, 2 of the 4 major mutuals being Mass Mutual and Guardian. Let's take a look. So we just had the Mass Mutual illustration up with a taxable equivalent yield. If we look at the next tab, we've got the same Mass Mutual policy, it's their 10-pay product, and then also Guardian's 10-pay product. Now long-term, Mass Mutual does look better right now. The main reason why is because their illustration assumes a dividend rate of 6.6%, whereas Guardian's assumes a dividend rate of 6.10%. Guardian's still illustrating their 2025 dividend rate. At this time, Mass Mutual's illustrating their 2026 dividend rate. Over the long haul, I would expect these 2 companies to be very, very close to each other. That's based on what I've seen when I look at real numbers, not just illustrations like what we see here. As we continue, he looked at both of them. Guardian is cool because they do allow a larger lump sum if you wanted to get money in faster. But to this point, he's heavily leaning toward Mass Mutual, just from all of our conversations and everything. So we're going to focus on that Mass Mutual policy. And here's what we'll look at. Using the policy to invest in a business or could be a real estate opportunity. And what we want to see is, what does the policy look like if I let it sit and grow compared to what it looks like when I take a loan? And then show me my true cost to borrow, which is the difference between what the policy is earning and what I am paying in interest. So why people use these policies with respect to loans is because when you borrow against it, your money keeps on compounding. So if you take out $1 million, that $1 million is going to continue to earn whatever the interest rate was, the total dividend. So let's take a look here. So we've got the illustrations up. They can be a little bit confusing because they lump everything together. So in this illustration, he funded $2 million. This guy is actually a $1 million loan, and then he starts to pay it back, where you can see a little bit more transparency. In life insurance illustrations is typically if we go to the supplemental value section, because then we'll actually see the word loan there, which is nice. But what I like to do with these is simplify them. So we take the data that we just had and drop it on Excel. So as we take a look at this, here's what we've got going on. To the left, let me start here. We've got the exact same illustration where we pay money in and just let it sit and grow. Then to the right, we're taking a loan and paying it back. You can borrow against your policy anytime. The earliest you can typically take a loan is about 10 business days after starting. In this example, I'm going to look at year 5 just because it's after the funding period and it makes the numbers easy to follow. So there's our $1 million loan, which makes our balance $1 million. And if I'm you, here's the question that I'm asking. How does that $1 million loan impact my policy? Firstly, your cash value. That drops, meaning if we compare that with the example where we just let it sit and grow, you will see a reduction in cash value. It dropped by a little bit more than $1 million. You know why? Dropped by 1, and it also, in this illustration, withheld the loan interest for the next year. That does not always happen, but that's why it dropped by a little bit more than 1 million, because it's also accounting for that loan interest. So your cash value, I like to describe as your line of credit, because this is the equity that you have access to. You can borrow against whatever you have in cash value. With most companies, you'll see the maximum loan is about 95% of your cash value. Now, why people do this is because when they borrow, they continue to earn dividends and interest on their full cash value, meaning he's still going to get compounding on the 2.2 million, even though 1 million is outstanding. How does the insurance company do this? People always ask that. What happened to your death benefit? Collateralized, dollar for dollar. Anytime you borrow against a life insurance policy, you will notice that your death benefit does reduce dollar for dollar. So if you die with a loan outstanding, the life insurance company is on the hook for that much less. Paying life insurance claims is their first and foremost obligation. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is they do offset the fact that they're paying you dividends and interest by charging you interest as well. So what we've got going on here, he borrows that 1 million, then he begins to pay it back at 200K per year. We can see of that 200K, how much is going toward interest and how much is going toward principal every year. Eventually he pays it back. Here's all I want to focus on. When it's paid back, what's your cash value worth? What's your death benefit worth? And what does that look like compared to the example where you just let it sit and grow? Exactly the same. So your money continued to compound. So I earned a return on my money while I used it. And then I also earned a return on this 1 million for my opportunity. In his particular case, either a business opportunity or real estate. And a lot of times we'll add that return in here as well. Today, I'm just going to focus on the life insurance to keep it simple. But here's really the advantage here. So if I look at my cash value growth, this helps people with visuals, helps me a lot too, is I can see exactly what the insurance company is paying me year over year. So the first year, I'm negative. Second year, I'm also negative because my money grew by less than what I paid in. However, beginning the third year, this represents the total dollar amount I'm receiving from the insurance company every year. So that's total dividends, total guaranteed interest, everything lumped together. So if I'm you, what I would ask here is, okay, what am I getting versus what am I paying? Here's how you look at it. So cash value growth compared to loan interest. If I look at year 6, when I paid about $53,000 in interest, my earnings were over $113,000. So if I want a column that shows me the spread, I would do it this way. And this allows someone to see the benefit to putting money into a policy because I still have a positive spread here in a case like this, in addition to what I'm earning elsewhere. So this is what got them, the tax benefits, and then also seeing that the money can keep on compounding. This is what gets everyone's interest. But when I understand how it works and see how I can use it to my advantage, that's where the fun part is. So that's what it looks like if we borrow and repay. What we also said we would look at is what happens if you don't pay it back, if life happens, because it happens to us all. Here we go. So here's the exact same scenario. Here we go. $1 million loan. In this example, we see the cash value and death benefit reduction, but then we don't pay anything back. No loan principal, no loan interest. We just let the interest ride and it compounds over time. So what we see here is the net cash value and net death benefit accounting for that loan. So how a lot of people look at this is they often say, well, I paid in 2 million, I pulled out $1 million, so I feel like I just put a net of $1 million in, and I've gotten more than that. And it keeps on compounding over time, and I have life insurance. If I pay any of it back, it looks even better. But this displays what it looks like if you don't pay anything back. And we can do the same thing where we look at the cash value growth and loan interest. In this particular case, he would be positive. I can make it look a lot worse though, which we'll save that for another time. Anyway, there's our loan analysis. So what's the end game here? Because borrowing and repaying, a lot of people do that to continue to grow their net worth. The tax benefits are attractive. He really, really liked that the most. But what about down the road when he eventually retires? He could just let the death benefit ride and then be passed to his beneficiaries. It's a great way to pass on a large sum of money because the death benefit's paid income tax free. Or I can use it, meaning I can use it for income. So we're going to look at that. When you're taking income from a life insurance policy, what I would do is first withdraw up to your cost basis. If you don't know what cost basis means, that's the total amount that you paid. And then I would begin to take loans, but I wouldn't pay any principal back or any loan interest. And that's how you can pull money from a life insurance policy tax-free. Now, it's very, very important to be responsible, mainly the agent you're working with here, and inform you how much you can realistically take from the policy. What that means is that I, the agent, should not just show you the maximum income that can be generated from this life insurance policy. Because if I have a variable loan interest rate and that rate goes up, that's going to impact how much income I can pull. If the dividend rate comes down, that's going to impact how much income I can pull from the policy because I'm taking loans and not paying any loan interest. So I want to make sure that I show realistic, which is just conservative numbers. So let's take a look here. If we look at one of our illustrations, we ran exactly that. So we've got the same policy. And then at 59, we're going to look at $250K per year in income coming out up until about age 100 in this particular case. So what we've got here on the left, the same growth illustration. This is always nice to compare everything with because you can see what the policy looks like if you don't touch it versus what it does look like if you do touch it. So in this case, we've got income of $250K per year at year 21. This is the same illustration we just looked at from MassMutual, just exported to Excel. So what I like to see here is what's the total amount we paid in, 2 million, and then what's the total amount we got? How much bang for my buck did I get here? So scrolling down, you've got your annual income at $250 per year, and then the total income here. So at 65, you paid 2 million, but you also pulled 2 million. So you got your money back. What's going on with the cash value here? It's still going up, meaning the 250 is not even putting a dent in the cash value. I'm still seeing positive appreciation year over year. We ran this conservative too. I'm able to easily pull $250K per year. If the loan rate goes up or dividends come down, I don't have to worry about the policy lapsing or me coming back to him and saying, hey, I think we need to reduce the income to prevent the policy lapse. I don't have to worry about any of that, which is why I like to look at the conservative numbers. But as we look at it over time, it does just get better and better, which is sweet. And if he kicks the bucket, call it at 95, there's still a death benefit of $8 million. So he paid in 2 million. He's pulled out 9.5 million. He still has cash value of 7, but if he dies, instead of the cash value being passed, it's about 8 million that's passed to his beneficiaries. And again, this is a more conservative example in terms of income coming out. If we look at a more aggressive one, which I would not advise looking at, but here's what it would look like. Same exact policy here. The only difference is I push the button solve for maximum income. So we're starting at the same point in time down here. What do you notice about the income? It's almost 290. What do you notice about the cash value? Coming down in this example. So it comes down slowly, but it does come down quite a bit as time passes. And at 95, like, he'll be okay. But if the dividend comes down, this is over almost 60 years too. If it comes down and stays low for a period of time, or the variable loan rate goes up while he's pulling income, this can be impacted quite a bit. So I do like to look at more conservative numbers, primarily just to set expectations and based on what I've seen over the years where people think they're going to have a lot of money and it ends up being less. If you set things more conservative, you don't have to worry about issues popping up down the road. But that's the end game, probably the conservative scenario, and that's how we plan to use the policy. So here's what I would do. And you can copy this at any level of funding and income. It doesn't have to be $2 million. You can take a zero off and everything would look almost identical in terms of the ratios and cash value and death benefit performance. Just chop a zero off. So the first thing I would do, choose a major mutual company who are Mass Mutual, Guardian, New York Life, and Northwestern Mutual. Proof of performance. That's why. Number two, ensure that the policy is designed for high cash value. So with his, he had more than 90% cash value in the first year. The Guardian example was about 87% in the first year. On average, I want to see somewhere between 80 and 90% of whatever my payment is available in first year cash value and a break-even point between years 3 and 5. That's how I know it's set up for high cash value. If you're older or you've got some health issues, maybe it's year 6, but it should still look attractive up front. And then third, this is more of an emotional point. Work with an agency or an agent that's easy to communicate with, where you feel like you can ask questions, you can request different scenarios, you don't feel like they're getting annoyed with you or anything like that. Remember that this is your money. It is okay to ask questions, and anyone that you work with should be willing to go through all of that with you. When I work with people, I appreciate it when they go through everything patiently with me. So that's what I would do. And as always, I hope this helps. Thanks so much.